Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood, and today we're going to be learning a bit about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. But before we get into the facts, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. We all know Dr. King was a serious leader who changed the course of history, but he was also just a normal guy with interests beyond the civil rights movement. Would you believe Martin Luther King Jr. was a massive Trekkie, a fan of the show Star Trek? So much so, he actually personally convinced an actress not to quit the show because he loved her character so much. What do you think? Is this an actual fact or just too good to be true? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Our word for today is orator. That's O-R-A-T-O-R. An orator is a public speaker, especially one who is eloquent or skilled. The word comes from the Latin word orare, which means to speak or to pray. While anyone who talks in front of a crowd is technically a speaker, the title of orator is reserved for those who move an audience with the power, rhythm, and emotion of their voice. It's about more than just sharing information. It's about inspiring action and touching hearts through language. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is widely considered one of the greatest orators in American history. His style was heavily influenced by the tradition of the Black church, using a technique called call and response, and a musical cadence that made his speeches feel almost like songs. When historians analyze his speeches today, they often note how he used metaphors and repetition, like his famous phrase, "I have a dream," to build energy and make his message unforgettable. Being a great orator allowed him to fight for justice without using weapons, showing that words can change minds, change hearts, and eventually change the world. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about Martin Luther King Jr. Number 1. Dr. King was a literal genius who started college at the age of just 15. Most teenagers are worrying about learning to drive or passing high school algebra, but Martin Luther King Jr. was already walking the halls of Morehouse College as a freshman at the age of 15. Because he was such a gifted student, he skipped both 9th and 12th grades entirely. This accelerated path wasn't just due to his intelligence, it was also connected to World War II. In 1944, many college-aged men were enlisting in the military, leaving universities with empty classrooms. Morehouse College decided to open its doors to younger, exceptional high school students to fill the gap, and King passed the entrance exam with flying colors. By the time he was 19, at an age when many people were just finishing their freshman year, King had already graduated with a degree in sociology. This set him on the fast track to leadership, allowing him to earn his PhD from Boston University by the time he was just 26 years old. His early start gave him the educational foundation he needed to tackle complex social issues with wisdom and maturity beyond his years. Number 2. We remember him today as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but his actual name at birth wasn't Martin. In 1934, the King family took a trip that would change quite a lot, including Martin's name. His father, who was the pastor of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, traveled to Germany for a religious conference and was deeply inspired by the story of Martin Luther, the 16th century German monk who launched the Protestant Reformation. Martin Luther was a figure who stood up for his beliefs and reformed the church. King's father saw the powerful connection between that history and his own mission. After returning to the US, the elder king decided to change both his own name and his son's name from Michael to Martin Luther. This name change was more than just a label, it was almost a prediction of the future. Just as the German Martin Luther changed the religious landscape in Europe, Martin Luther King Jr. would go on to reform the social landscape of America. Number 3. Dr. King set a world record by becoming the youngest man ever to win the Nobel Peace Prize. In 1964, at the age of just 35, King was awarded the prestigious honor in Oslo, Norway, for his nonviolent resistance to racial prejudice. For contrast, the average age of Nobel Peace Prize winners is usually somewhere around 60 or 65. It obviously changes a little bit every year as the prize is awarded to someone else. While Dr. King's win at such a young age set the record in his day, that record has since been broken by Malala Yousafzai, who became the youngest person ever to win the prize in 2014 at the age of just 17, showing that greatness has no age. Dr. King does remain the youngest male recipient in history, though. I think the most interesting fact, though, is what he did with the financial award. Along with the medal, the prize came with $54,123. Adjusted for inflation, that would be around $500,000 today. But Martin Luther King Jr. showed his character and didn't keep a single penny of it for himself. He donated the entire sum to the civil rights movement to help fund the ongoing work for equality and justice. While his work leading the civil rights movement was obviously high profile, for him it wasn't about fame and fortune. It was purely about the betterment of humanity. Number 4. The most famous lines in his I Have a Dream speech were actually kind of improvised on the spot. When Dr. King stepped up to the podium at the Lincoln Memorial in 1963, he had a prepared script that he had written and rewritten, but the phrase "I have a dream" was not in that final draft. As he was reading his prepared text, the legendary gospel singer Mahalia Jackson, who was standing right near him on the stage, shouted out, "Tell them about the dream, Martin." She had heard him mention the dream concept in smaller speeches previously and knew how powerful it could be. At her urging, Dr. King pushed his papers aside, looked up at the crowd of 250,000 people, and began to preach from his heart. The next several minutes of the speech, the parts we all learn in school today, were completely unscripted. It just goes to show the power of speaking from the heart and pivoting based on the energy in the room. It was a collaboration between the orator and the singer that resulted in one of the most important sequences of words in the 20th century. And our fifth and final fun fact for today. While we remember him as a world-famous orator, Dr. King actually got a C in public speaking during his first year of seminary. This is a great example of having a growth mindset, a concept in psychology that suggests our abilities can improve with effort. When King attended Crozer Theological Seminary, one of his professors gave him a C in public speaking. He wasn't born a perfect orator. He had to learn, practice, and refine his voice over time. But here's the key. He didn't let this grade discourage him. Instead, Dr. King studied great preachers, analyzed their techniques, and worked harder on his delivery. By the time he graduated, he was the valedictorian of his class with straight A's. And I think the key takeaway here is that talent is great, but it's a starting point. It'll only take you so far. Deliberate practice is what leads to mastery. Now for some news you can use. Here's a little tip for anyone who wants to be a great orator. Embrace the power of the pause. If you ever have to give a presentation in class or tell a story to your friends, try slowing down. When we're nervous, we tend to talk very fast to get it over with, but Dr. King was the master of the pause. He would speak a sentence, and then wait for a few seconds to let it sink in. The silence grabs people's attention and makes you sound more confident. Next time you're speaking, take a deep breath and give your audience a moment to think. It works like magic. And this technique isn't just for speeches. It can be a secret weapon in everyday conversations, too. We often think we need to be constantly saying something interesting to be a good conversationalist, but the truth is that being a good listener is actually far more important. Just providing space for others to speak and share their ideas is very validating. When people feel heard, they enjoy the conversation. Now for the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked if Dr. King was actually a Trekkie and even convinced one of the actresses to stay on the show. Well, that's a fact. The actress Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura, planned to leave Star Trek after the first season to pursue a career on Broadway. But at a fundraiser, she met Dr. King, who told her he was her biggest fan. When she mentioned that she was leaving the show, he urged her to stay, explaining that her role was vital because she was playing a character who was an equal, a leader, and a scientist in the future, something that was rarely seen on TV for African American women at that time. She took his advice and stayed on the Enterprise. Because she listened to Dr. King, she was still there later to film one of the most famous moments in TV history a year later. It was the first high-profile interracial kiss on a scripted US drama. Interestingly, the TV network was nervous about the scene and ordered the actors to film a backup version where they didn't kiss, just to be safe. Nichelle Nichols and William Shatner, who played Captain Kirk, decided to take matters into their own hands. They deliberately messed up every single non-kiss take by crossing their eyes and making silly faces at the camera. The editors had no choice but to use the take where they kissed, forcing the network to air the historic moment. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about Martin Luther King Jr. with me today, and be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.